anything that you believe in, you got to be evangelical about it. Whether it is leadership, whether it is, sharing idea, you've got to be evangelical about it. You got to because that's your contribution. You want to be in that old age and look back, be like, yeah, I gave it all here, right? I give it all here. I learned this thing about the richest place on earth, which is the cemetery. Can you believe that? The cemetery is the richest place on earth because people go there with their music still in themselves, with their talent, with their books, their design, their knowledge. What about you live it here? Live it, man. Why are you going with everything in you, Sam? Live it here.
Die empty.
Die empty. That's it. That's it. Die empty, man.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 120. In this episode, I speak with speaker, communication skills and confidence coach, and author, Elvis Prince Tognia. This was a phenomenal conversation, to say the least. Elvis has incredible energy. I can't wait for you to check it out. We talked about communication, his book, Light Up Your Life, which is stellar, and a whole lot more. To watch this podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. To listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Elvis. Elvis Prince Tognia, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much.
I don't mean to hype this up too much, but I'm going to.
Okay.
When I'm out and about and I meet people and I'm like, okay, I know usually right away, like, oh, we definitely got to do a podcast. But when I met you, I'm like, we definitely need to do a podcast. Your energy is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You were hosting an event, and your ability to capture the attention of the room and communicate. And you really, it was really a work of art what I watched that night.
I think it's my superpower, energy. It's my superpower right there.
I think you found your thing.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah.
Because I might have mentioned it to you. I recently just went through a speaking program. So my mind's really been on speaking and watching other people speak. But when I watched you, I'm like, oh my gosh, standing ovation.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you. I'm actually blushing now, but you cannot see though. You cannot see.
Well, not only speaking, the ability to host, because those are two different things
No,
too.
Sure, of course.
Because it's one thing when you have a time slot and you go up there and you speak.
And deliver,
but you were not only doing that, but you have to run the room. You have to organize
yes,
everything. So I guess I'll just start in. How did you get started into that?
Man, it's a story that I don't know if we have enough time to go through that journey. But in fact, I just want to say that I was so disqualified to do the things that I'm doing now, which means I grew up very, very shy, timid, introvert, you can name it. I was the opposite of who I am today. So basically, to be able to do that today, it's like two people, really. I would say the story started about 10 years ago for me, when I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And it came as a result of discovering really my purpose. What am I here to do? And of course, you can tell I do have an accent, which means I'm originally from elsewhere, and more precisely Cameroon. It's a country in the center of Africa. So after arriving in the US 20 years ago, 10 years later, I was still trying to find my way through, this new society. That's when I realized that I've learned something in America that I want to share with many people back home. I want to share with the person that I used to be. So you see, I was, reading books here, discovering some principles about life. And I thought if I knew that when I was still back in Cameroon, my life would have been much easier. And I knew then and there that my objective in this world, my purpose, is to be able to help another person who's in a lesser position that I am. And I have to do that through communicating. And I didn't have that because I was very shy. I was timid. I didn't have confidence. And I went through a process of gaining those skills. I learned those skills. I joined an organization where I can learn those skills. And it became my life task. That's how I was able to, I would say, is to gain some level of confidence and some skill. And then, whenever I have to either deliver a keynote or host an event like the one you're talking about, or even teach, I want to give all of me, because I don't know what tomorrow going to be like, but I want my performance today to be as though there would not be any other performance for me. So that's why when you see me at the event, I give my all there.
And you have an awesome all. And shout out to Christelle of the Business Exclusive Network.
Yes, Christelle. Yeah, absolutely.
That was great because she connected all of us. And yeah, when I was just watching you, I'm like, man, that's a pro. Like, that's a pro. Like, I go to certain things and people, I could just tell that when you were doing it, I'm like, that he is meant to do that. Sure, you're meant to do many other things, but that's definitely one thing.
No, I know, in my
communication and people. And even before you had started to go up to the event, you came up to me, introduced
We chatted a little bit.
We chatted a little bit. So I was very impressed. And I actually read your book recently.
Yes.
Which is, you can see it right here.
Light of Your Life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess that's book 2.
That's book 2.
I found out by reading that book that there's another book.
Another one. And the third one is coming up, by maybe January. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, what's the first one about?
It's the title is Rise to Your Best Life. It's still self-help. The first one, it's my discovery of the wonders of life. As I mentioned to you earlier, that I come from Africa. I grew up in the small, tiny village there, which means we didn't have almost anything that you can imagine in the modern world. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water. We didn't have almost any basic necessity that any human being deserved to have. So I was cut out of the world. I didn't know much of anything else. When I came to America, I found the world of books. I was like literally like a kid in a candy store when I found out about books. And when I started to dive into books, I started to learn some principles about life, the things that can help us be the best version of ourselves. That's when my mind just went bazooka, if I want to say. So I might just I'd be like, this is gold. This is something amazing that I'm discovering. So out of that excitement, I thought I should put that in the form of writing so that the person who I used to be, I'm talking about maybe somebody who has not discovered that sort of world as I did, can know that through me, there are things that can help us change who we are, become the best version of ourselves, or go to that next level of life. So I just share all the principles that I've learned, that I start to observe in the society, that I start to apply in my own life. That's why I wrote that first book, Rise to Your Best Life.
And you're preaching to the choir because I love books. I love books. You're exactly right. It is, the mind's a muscle.
It is.
The mind's a muscle, and you got to go to the gym.
You got to go to the gym, man.
And you mentioned in this book, Light Up Your Life, about going to the library.
Yes.
Santa Monica Library, to be specific.
Santa Monica Library, specifically, that's a library that changed my life. Because, if I am here today, it's partly because of that. For me, it was just diving into a new world. It was a new world for me. As African, you probably don't know this about many Africans. We don't read books, man. We don't read books. You can put money in the book, we will miss it because we don't open any book. So some of the book that we usually read are the books assigned in school when we growing up in Africa. Right? It's not in our culture to read books outside the ones that are assigned in school. So that was me because I came here when I was 25. So the entire time that I lived in Africa, I never read any book other than the ones that were assigned in school. So when I came here, by serendipity, I found out, it wasn't like it was a conscious, deliberate effort to want to go to the library. And in fact, let me take you back a little bit where it began for me. The whole journey, especially even being here as a speaker and a communication skills coach. So I came to US not speaking a word of English at the age of 25. It was hard to communicate. It was hard to express my feelings, my ideas. But then I was in Washington, D.C., and when I came there, there's a great African community in Washington, D.C., a big one. And absolutely, it's fantastic for somebody who just arriving in a new country, right? Because you want to ease into a new country by having the people that you can connect with, you know? But after a while, it doesn't serve a purpose anymore because you get sheltered. The food that you eat is from back home. The language you speak is from back home. You have your roommate who's somebody from your hometown. You have your coworker who's somebody who from Africa. So you spend most of your time just speaking your native language or the national language, which is French in my case. So after a few years in Washington, D.C., for some reason, there was something inside of me that wanted to explore more of America. And that's the reason why I came here in LA in the first place. I packed my stuff in the car. It took me 3 days. I didn't know a single soul in LA. I just came here because I want to immerse myself. I wanted to immerse myself in American society to really have the opportunity to speak the language a little bit more often because I wouldn't have so many people around me that I know. And after arriving here, I enrolled at Santa Monica College to start taking courses there. And this particular day, we were studying a poem by John Coltrane. It was my English class. Because I grew up very shy and timid, my professor called my name to read a passage in the book. That's when all the hell broke loose. When I stood to read, it was as though I lost consciousness. It might have taken like a couple of seconds, but for me, it was as though it was a whole day. But when I came to and I read, and I couldn't understand the text that I was reading, I was sweating profusely. I was shaking. It was crazy. It was like the worst that could happen to me. But then my teacher, my professor said something that began the transformation of my life to the person that I am today. She said this, Elvis, there's something about your voice that is pleasing to hear. You should read often. Or, of course, sometimes teachers would give that, feedback or a compliment to kids just to encourage them. But for me, it wasn't just an encouragement. It was a seed that was planted in my mind. So oftentimes, I would find the need, the desire to want to say something because I want to get a praise. And you see, conversely, I'm coming from a culture that the praises are rare. We don't say that, oh, you are wonderful, you did well. No, in my culture, we don't do that. So I would want to oftentimes say something in class or even outside of class simply because I want to hear that, oh, you have a nice voice. And that led me to want to do more. That led me to want to read because you want to know what you are saying, right? And I started to read books. That's why I started to, just to improve my vocabulary, because you cannot just be expressive if you don't have vocabulary to express exactly what you want to say, right? I wanted to read to learn more vocabulary. And in reading, That's when I start to discover these principles of life, the principle that we can change ourselves, that we have a brain that is plastic, that who we are today is not the person that we can be tomorrow. So those things started to, just boom in my brain. And that's when, I got excited about writing books, sharing these ideas too, you know?
Wow. I agree with you. And we were talking a little bit before this, how that one piece of information, whether it's a social media clip or someone giving someone a compliment. That's what I loved about your book too, and which I want to dive more into, but just people don't understand that the littlest of things can actually be the most powerful to the right person.
No, absolutely. Usually, those are the little things that can make the biggest impact. It's usually not the biggest things, because the biggest things are so overwhelming, but the little things are easily digestible. That's why they can make the biggest impact.
I never thought of it like that.
I just thought about it now.
Yeah. We're going to clip that up. So you got into the writing. What led you? Because when I did meet you, you did tell me you train people in communication.
Yes.
Correct? How did you get into that?
It's just out of the idea that I want to share. I have this philosophy that each one teach one. So communication, because I know what it has done for me, I think it's only fair for me to start teaching those who are in the position that I used to be. And that's why I started teaching communication. And precisely because when you just arrive in a new country and you don't speak a language, man, you feel like a child, really, that is just starting to discover the world, So having gone over, learning how to communicate myself, learning how to express my ideas. And today in my community, even the African community, I see many people who do have the intelligence. They know a lot of stuff. You can see an expert, but they lack the ability to share what they know. So for me, I think we are missing so much when experts cannot share in ways that can impact somebody else's life about what they know. And we need to understand also that it's not because we are an expert that we know how to communicate what we know, right? Communication skill, it's a skill that needs to be learned, just like you can learn the piano. So you can be 10 out of 10 on the expert level, but if you are only 3 out of 10 on your communication level, people would perceive you 3 out of 10. You see, that's why I thought that it's important to share my own journey, the things that I learned in expressing my ideas clearly, concisely, and more compellingly. So that's why today I also teach communication.
And as you're telling your story, it makes sense because when you came here, like you said, you didn't speak any English. So you literally had to start from ground zero.
Ground zero in terms of that language, yeah.
But there's almost, there's a beauty in that no matter what you're pursuing when you start from the very beginning.
Yes.
Like that. Like, for example, at the acting school Eric and I went to, they don't hand you a scene right away.
Okay.
Like an acting scene. They made you start out doing very basic exercises because they want you to learn the fundamentals.
Yes.
So it sounds like you had to go from the beginning learning every fundamental, but by doing that, you have a full understanding of that. So I've never thought of it like that. How someone may be an expert in something, but communication wise, they never put effort into that because maybe they didn't have to. Maybe
it's that's what I call the familiarity syndrome. Familiarity syndrome, like you grew up with things around you and you don't find the need to really go far because there is no. But when you start with the learner's mindset that you don't know anything, and that's a mindset to have. You really want to know something, like the beginner's mindset. It helps you to understand the intricacy of the language, even its cultural aspect, because language is not just words that we speak, but it has the culture laced to it. So when you have that beginner's mindset, it helps you to be in the space and place where you can really see the intricacies, the different layers and the cultural layer of a particular language. And that, for me, was the journey that I embarked on to not only master the English language, but also understand it in the viewpoints of Americans, or maybe foreigners, or somebody's coming from a different country. And that's why even in my training, I kind of like um, keep have that nuance of diversity and inclusiveness in the training, because I know that even in corporate level, there are many people from all backgrounds, all cultures. So by helping them, I'm going to give you a quick example. For instance, in my culture, I grew up in a culture where you cannot speak unless you are spoken to. And when you speak, you don't look at somebody who's older than you in the eyes. That would be a sign of disrespect. But here is the opposite, right? If you don't look at somebody when you're speaking to them, it could be a disrespect as well, or you're hiding something. So now, when you're training somebody who's from a different culture, you got to pay attention to those nuances and help them to be in the place where they can actually adapt those nuances in ways that they can help them become more efficient and effective as they communicate. So that's why having a beginner's mindset, it's absolutely important in any aspects of our learning journeys. You know,
Well, I knew this question would be coming. So I'm curious to get your take with technology increasing. A lot of us are buried in the phone. So I'm curious from your perspective, because I'm sure you've seen, have you seen a shift in people's communication skills? The more we get ingrained in technology and texting, even over calling somebody, and just the messaging and screens and things of that nature. Have you seen a big difference?
it's obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can see the shift happening, and it's becoming even more alarming. I would say alarming because I don't know where we are headed with that shift. One thing that I know about human being is that we are social animal. So that means we only thrive in community. And when we talk about community, like we connect. And the mode of connection that is the most powerful is communication, verbal communication. Because we can text all day, we can use social media all day, but there will be a lagging in that connection. Because if you text, I may not know exactly how you're feeling at that moment you're texting, what's going on in your life. You can say whatever you're saying in the text, but it doesn't say much about really what you're feeling, right? And that's why things like in communication, body language is and tonality is absolutely powerful. You see, so you can speak, I can detect that, Sam, in your voice, I feel a little bit of sadness. Or in your voice, I feel really, like bliss or joy or whatever. I can detect that. And I would communicate it with you, from that understanding in ways that can touch you, that can elevate you. But if we don't have that, we are missing a big part of who we are as human beings. And it's very scary what's going to be. And I'm going to say something in that nature. Youth now, I mean, many of us know that in youth population, there's an increase in loneliness, increase in suicidal thought and suicidal action in youth population. Why? As a result of being distant from each other, not being able to connect and communicate in the deeper. And I predict, it's a kind of, I'm no expert in anything. I predict that there will be a time in the future where there will be a crisis of some sort, a crisis to return to the basic. And the basic is to see you and talk to you and give you a hug and say, Sam, it's nice to see you. It's nice to know you. Something basic as that, because that's who we are as human beings. We can never dissociate from that. Yeah, it may not happen in our lifetime, you and I, but I think something like that could happen. We start to see that happening in the youth population. And it's a direct result of just staying on the technology on social media and thinking that we have millions of followers, millions of friends on social media, while we don't have actually no friend at all. See? So that's really alarming. Yeah, and the fundamental question that we can ask is, nowadays, technology has made our life very comfortable. Things are easier, we're very comfortable, but the question is, are we happier today than we were 50 years ago? The likely answer is no. If anything, we're even more depressed today than we were 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So, which means, while we think that it's good, all of the technology, but it doesn't fulfill human purpose, which is, I just want to be happy. What am I doing here? I just want to be in a place and space where I'm happy and fulfilled. And to this day, technology doesn't provide us that, And I grew up in the village, and I often wonder if an old farmer who has nothing, not even an electricity in the house, nothing you can imagine, is less happy than maybe somebody who lives in the Hollywood Hills with the big mansion and have like 10 cars in the garage and a fat bank account. But if you dig deeper, you're going to realize the farmer is very happy, because I used to be there. I grew up in the village. It was a very simple life, a very content. If you go to Africa, you're going to realize, the one thing that you're going to realize is that people with less can be so happy than people with more. So just to go back, like, technology is wonderful. We use it because it facilitates our everyday lives, but it doesn't make us happier or more fulfilled.
I love that. Do you ever miss Africa in that sense, or that lifestyle rather?
I do now that I live in the big city, because of course, when I used to live there, I used to envy big cities, right? Because it was the only life that I knew. Village, you're just gonna wake up in the morning and go to the farm and, just do with the nature. And I used to see people in the big city living in big houses, electricity, television. We didn't have television because we didn't have electricity. But now that I live in the big city, I long for that simple life. Simple life where I can, now as an adult, I can really do my little subsistence farming, not think commercial. Just the prospects of going to my farm and looking at the pineapple that ripens on the tree, pineapple tree. It's a most exhilarating moment, a blissful moment, really. Something so peaceful and so wonderful about that. To observe that the crop that you have planted, the seed that you put under the ground, you see that coming out. That's a magical, it's meditative even. That simple life. Not doing things left and right, because that's what we have become, especially in big city. We have become human doing rather than human being.
I love that. Well, yeah, and what I loved about your book is, and you mentioned simplicity in there, simple. You mentioned so many simple things we can do. Like I thought it was really interesting when you broke down smiling.
Yeah.
How that you're going to know way better than me. So when you're smiling, it's automatically putting you in that positive state.
It does, but science shows that. This is not just an opinion, right? There have been many studies about smile, how Even when you fake a smile, that produces the positive effect in your brain. And that's why in some university there's been study where students were putting the pencil between their teeth. They're not smiling, they just put the pencil. Now, the brain thinks, because the muscle that are responsible for the smile are affected, the brain thinks that, oh, this girl is smiling. What does the brain do? The brain goes on to secrete hormones that are responsible for positive mood because it thinks that you are smiling. So when you smile, even when you fake it, it does produce a positive effect. And smile is contagious because when somebody smiles at you, you don't even think about it. You smile without even thinking, right? It's contagious because there are these things in our brain called the mirror neurons. The mirror neurons, when I see you do something like a smile, it would just connect. We are human being. Our brain, it connects like electricity, man. It's amazing. So that's why I smile. And guess what? It's the cheapest thing that you can possibly do. It doesn't cost you anything, right? And what I noticed, and I put that in my book, is I have kids. When my kids were babies, I used to observe, oftentimes, baby, I'm talking about a few days old or a few weeks old, a few months old. The baby would start to show the toothless smile, like start smiling. But for what? So that tells me that smile is innate in us. But as we grow as an adult, we start to put reason in smiling. We got to smile because something funny or whatever, happens before we smile. But yet it is something that is innate in us. Because the baby smile, why is the baby smiling? The baby doesn't even have a full consciousness of anything around him. But the baby is smiling. So it doesn't cost anything. You can smile even if you are by yourself. Yeah, your neighbor might think that you're crazy, but you know what you're doing. You see what I mean? You think what you're doing. Because these things started to affect your own health. Because it's all of these things, man, that the brain just does to keep you in a healthy state. Smile, laughter, all of it, man. And it's the cheapest commodity. You don't have to go buy it. You don't have to struggle to get it. You just smile. It does affect you positively and might affect your neighbor positively. And guess what? We may just have the world that it's so wonderful and, like Roger, what's his
Mr.
name?
Rogers.
Mr. Roger, like a beautiful neighborhood, it's a beautiful neighborhood. So we might just have a world where, when, the world that everybody can just be well and wonderful and amazing just because of a simple smile.
I'm pumped up to go smile now. Like I want,
Bro,
it's like I want
you gotta do it.
Yeah,
You gotta do
Not
it.
that I don't ever, but like be more proactive.
Yeah,
with
don't
it.
wait for somebody else to make you smile or look at something that makes you smile.
Because we talk a lot about energy and mind frame on
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
and it's once you get pulled in those negative mind frames, a lot of times you get stuck there. But I could see how that smile breaks you out of that.
Our brain is prone to negative bias. So it tends to go on things that are not working or things that are negative and you hold on to it. So you've got to consciously want to smile. You have to consciously want to put yourself in that state that you feel happy, joy, laughing. You got to it doesn't happen naturally, but the negativity may be natural because it's that's our brain. And that was good for survival because the reason why we are prone to negative bias is because of the survival mechanism built in us. We got to look for what is not working, what is dangerous in order to survive. But in the modern world, we no longer chased by to the tiger, right? So now we have the full neocortex of the brain that says that there is no danger there. No, we should relax and chill and smile. But we have the limbic system. We have inherited that. That's why we still, you know.
Well, another simple thing you mentioned hugs.
Oh,
And
man.
I want to give you credit. I actually gave a friend a hug the other day and gave him an extra hug.
Yes.
Like, you're right. You
does-
feel good.
It does something, man. I'm telling you, it does something. When you hold that hug for a few seconds, there's something about it. That's what I talked about earlier, that we are human beings. We are social animal. We can only function and survive when we are in concert. We do these things. We hug each other. We communicate with each other. We talk. That's how we can survive as a species, man. It's part of who we are. The simple thing as a hug, give that wonderful hug. You're gonna start to see the chemicals start coursing through your vein, and those are positive chemicals, and it can only put you in a good mood. Yes, man.
Well, and then moving on, I mean, complimenting people. That's another one because, you know, we're artists here in the room. It's like, we get in our heads a lot. It's like, criticism and stuff like that. But I think it was someone, I was in an acting showcase before I moved out here in Vegas, and someone had come up to me and they said, "Hey, good job." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I remember he goes, "No, it's important to let somebody know." So ever since that person had told me that, I try to make an effort I call it give people your roses.
Yeah.
So when you see someone doing something well, like letting them know, because even though I think a lot of times we see people doing things well and we just, oh, well, it's easy for them. And they're on cloud nine where they may be really depressed. Or they may be
absolutely
going through a lot. And like that little compliment, like you had said earlier, when your teacher had given you that compliment, that might change their entire trajectory.
That's what it is. And compliment is another thing that is very simple. Doesn't cost you anything. The thing is just to be a little bit genius about it. What am I saying? A little bit, what's
genuine.
the word? Genuine. English still kind of like, so it's come
you
across
speak
a little
it
bit,
very well.
so genuine about complimenting somebody, like really telling them something that can boost them, not just there are some the things that we say that becomes automatic, something like thank you, right? Sometimes we just say it because it becomes so automated. We say it even without thinking. But oftentimes it's to put heart as you say that to somebody because they feel it. We are energy being, man. You see what I mean? So because when you say thank you with your heart, I feel it because heart connects, with another heart. So, and compliment is that thing. I mentioned that praise is what changed me, really. And it does do something when somebody gives you a praise. See what I mean? When somebody says, Sam, man, what you are doing here, it's amazing. As I just mentioned, it might help just one person. If it helps that one person to change his or her life, man, you have done your job. And that is the beautiful thing to do. And that is really a genuine, remark. It's really a genuine compliment because I know somebody else's life would change as a result of what you have put in place. That's what compliment is really. It can change somebody else, like troubleshoot somebody else there. You're going through whatever in your head, somebody say, hey, man, you look amazing today. That's going to do something in you. So this book, it's just simple. As the title say, light up your life, just to bring it, to that level.
And I'm even having a greater understanding of what you said earlier. You're exactly right. The simplest things are the most digestible.
are the most digestible.
Because that's what I loved about your book. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Every chapter, I'm like, yeah, no, he's right. Like it's so simple. But I think we live in this age too where, I don't know, we have to, with all the technology and
Yeah. We're so much
we
distracted.
overcomplicate things.
Yeah, yeah,
We overcomplicate things. So we think, well, it needs to be it has to be complicated.
It shouldn't
or
be.
else it's not a
It shouldn't be.
challenge or
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be complicated. I mean, and that's why it's important for any conscious human being to be aware of these things. And that's the first key, awareness. Because we live on autopilot. It's autopilot. We are thinking that we are making decisions doing this or that, but we live on autopilot. That's why being aware of what's going on around you, being aware of your life, where you're going, all of these things is important. And guess what? You can take a step back and reconsider. It's an exercise to do. You just don't wake up one morning and become any of that. You've got to take action. Change requires action. If you want to stop being in the rat race, you've got to take action to stop it, to know that you're in the rat race, that you are moving, but you're not going anywhere. You've got to be aware that, movement doesn't mean progress. See what I mean? So you have to be aware that is what I'm doing today is leading me to really what is fulfilling for me, for something that I desire, or I'm just doing it because I'm in the bandwagon. I see everybody else doing. And I'm in it thinking like I'm just fulfilling my duty as a human being, but I'm just running it's a rat race. But take a step back. Observe your life as though you were an outside spectator. And it's an exercise of the mind. We have the ability to do that, to observe like, what am I doing? What am my life? Just watch like you are just looking at somebody else, You can do that. We have the ability to get out of self and observe a little bit what we're doing. And when you realize that some of these movements are not really taking you to where you want to go, that's when you can take a step back. You can also use a meditative practice to be able to be mindful of the situation, which is absolutely important. Because now we live in the world that is, we are so bombarded. We are in the world of information overload, like it comes from every direction. You wake up, you already have like bunch of stuff coming at you, like hitting you from every angle, right? So, but you've got to be aware of all of that and start to sift through what you really need that fulfill really your desires. That's just, the way to go.
You just add something to my new daily affirmations. Movement doesn't mean progress.
Absolutely.
That right there. Well, and especially now of days and especially like a city like here, right?
Oh,
like LA,
man.
we're all moving and grooving.
We're moving. That's what I'm saying. We become human doing rather than human being.
Yeah. And it's like, there are times where I stop. I'm like, because you got to really stop to think about it. Like, am I going in the right direction? Like,
yes.
Go.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important to take those moments of pause.
No, it's, and the most important is just not to think about it, but to schedule it. Because what is scheduled, it's often done. What is scheduled is often done. Because if you just think like you're going to do it, you will be bombarded with more things that it would just be buried. But if you schedule it, like I'm going to put it on the, on the notebook. I'm going to put it on my, alarm, whatever. Like this time of the day, I'm going to just stop and take a moment, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and reconsider everything during that day. So the idea is to schedule it and it will get done. And that's how you do it. You do it, and you take control now on your life. You take control of a lot of things. And you arrive at the place where now you can easily say without thinking the prayer of serenity that says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to make the difference. That's it.
Wow, this is it's great reading the book, but it's even better. Have you done an audio version of this?
I haven't done an audio version. Well, I'll get to a point that I could do something like that,
So and I'm thinking, so when we say interpersonal communication, because communicating, I guess I'm setting up a question here.
Sure.
Because this is something I watched you do, and you're very, very good at it. You communicate with different people differently, right? Not everyone communicates the same way. So what's some insight into that? Like, is it just reading people's body language, just those tonalities you talked about?
Yes, it's you got it. You got it right. It's about knowing how to read people. And it's a skill in itself. Observing. And sometimes when you don't have to spend the whole course, the whole day to understand somebody. You just spend that little bit of quick time. It could be like a few seconds, just and you have a sense of that type of person. You may not even interact with that person, but just by observing them, as a speaker, what we do is when we're on stage, that's when eye contact is so powerful because you can read your audience and adjust based on what you read. See, you can just look at people in the audience and see the level of attention that they're giving you when you are saying something. And of course, there's an energy that is transferred in that attention. Somebody can be looking at you with the eyes open, but they're not seeing you, right? But you can feel the energy when somebody is really looking at you and considering what you're saying. So it's about reading people. And what has caused me to be able to communicate with people differently is also what has taught me about us human beings. We don't learn the same way. We don't understand things the same way. Just go back to the child growing up. Not every child start to speak at the same moment, start to walk at the same time. Some might speak earlier, others might speak a little bit later. Same with walking or running or anything, right? So understanding that people are different, you cannot just provide them the same information at the same level. Even when you communicate on individual level with them, you know that if I'm with Sam, there are certain things, certain ways that I communicate with Sam that would make the connection even more powerful. Same with Eric, right? So that's why it's important to know how to read people. And body language is really important. You see, in communication, I often see that what you say, well, it's not just me. It's an understanding in communication that what you say account only for 7%. That means the content, what comes out of your mouth, the verbal that you use, only 7%. But 93% is everything else that is not verbal. Think about it.
That's insane.
Only 7% account for what you say, but 93%, it's your tonality, it's your vocal variety, it's your hand gesture, it's your body language, your facial expression, it's everything else. That's what makes a great communication a powerful one. A communication that can start a movement. See, so when you learn body language, and by the way, body language predated language. So which means people used to communicate using only their bodies before language was. Human didn't start with language right away. It was something that happened after a while. You see, but people used to communicate. People used to write in caves. People used to communicate, just like the animals do. The monkeys, if you observe them. So that's why body language is part of it's our unconscious mind. You could be saying something to me that is false, but how do I know if it's false? How your body behaves. Because your body doesn't lie. You see, you could be lying to me and your body would be causing your eyes to shift a little bit, to not want to look at me in the eyes when you're speaking it, you know, or any other form of body movement that would tell me much about what's going on, that you are lying. What are the interrogators like FBI, interrogators and negotiator? That's what they bank on. Body language is not what the criminal or the suspect, whatever, say to them. They observe them. When you observe people, you can easily approach them in ways that can break the defense, can elevate them, or anything in between. So yeah, that's how, as a communicator, it's important to read that. And I'm still learning. I'm on a journey, bro. I'm on a journey. I want to be in a place where I really can affect people with my presence in a positive way, of course. Just my presence. I'm learning that,
Well, as you're breaking all this down, politics comes to my mind. As
Yes.
far as I'm thinking of all the politicians, like you got to be a master of this, especially the higher levels you go with the big crowds of people.
Yes.
I can
Yes.
see you definitely being in some type of diplomatic situation of some kind, like communicating.
I don't know if
Or the general of the army.
I don't know if I can do politics, man. But I have to. Growing up, I went to school back home. I went to university, and I studied political science because at one point, Africa it's such a wonderful place in terms of the people, the natural resources, but lots of governments, just destroy that place. That's why there's so much poverty. So growing up, I kind of thought like maybe I can do something with it. That's why I studied politics. But when I came to US, I just thought like you could have a good intention when you're starting out. By the time that you get there, you will have sold your soul many times, So that's why politics is, I just think that the change that I can affect, it's what I'm doing. It's talking to people, coaching them, helping them see the best version of themselves to go to that next level, aspire to the best version of themselves, So I think that's the best way that I can contribute. That's me, I don't know. I'm not saying that I cannot do politics in the future, but if I'm in the situation where I think my position can allow me to make the greatest impact, I will combine, all of that to really make the greatest impact that I can possibly make here on earth.
And that's great awareness right there. Like being able to analyze yourself. What are my skill sets? What are my strengths?
Yes.
What direction do I want to take this?
And that's what I advise anybody when I coach people. I say that every single person is born with a gift. Every human being is born with a gift. Every single person. But the thing is, many people may live their whole life without discovering what that is. Simply because, first of all, we are buried into a world with information overload. We don't even have time to assess who we are. That's why we don't discover our gift. But every single person, I noticed that because of what I do now. You see, my gift was a what I'm doing now. Even though the first 2 decades of my life, it was buried under shame, buried under bullied, because I was so much bullied when I was growing up. Buried under shame because we didn't have much. When I would go to school, I would always try to hide because I didn't have, the clothes that my friend had, the shoes. In fact, I used to have only one pair of shoes for 2 years of school, just one pair. By the end of the school year, sometimes the sole of the shoe would already be off. The sole of my foot would be on the floor. We have to walk to school like 7 miles. So there was a lot of things that I was ashamed of. But the reason why I know that communication was in my blood, some in me, even though I didn't know it, as Steve Jobs said, I don't know if you remember his speech in 2005 at Stanford University. He said that you can only connect the dot going backward, the dot of your life going backward. If you look at that speech, a very powerful speech, 2005 commencement speech at Stanford University. So for me, I connected the dot about speaking. Until the age of 30, I didn't know anything. I didn't even dream about ever doing this. But once I'm doing it in hindsight, I look back and realize, my God, I used to love my professor who were very eloquent. I used to admire them. I remember my teacher in high school. It was my philosophy teacher because in Africa, we introduced philosophy a little bit earlier in high school. I used to just admire that guy because he was very charismatic. The way that he explained the course, he would stand up and start to explain this philosophical principle. And the way that he was doing that with his gesture, I used to be mesmerized by it. Only in hindsight that I discovered that I used to love, just admire those people who were very eloquent. So which tells me that there was a seed of that inside of me, even though it was buried the first 3 decades of my life. So every human being, Sam, has a gift. Every single person, because we are unique in our own kind. There are no two Sams who thinks like you, who act like you, who behave like you, who feels like you. It's just you. There's a blueprint about who you are. And in that blueprint, there is your gift there. There is something essential. And this is the thing. You would do a disservice to the world or to whoever created you if you do not put that gift to use. And this is what I'm saying. You got to find your purpose, man. You got to find your purpose. You see the tree. The purpose of the tree is to produce fruit. I'm not talking about these trees that we plant and they don't produce fruit. I'm talking about the natural fruit, a tree. They always produce fruit. That they always do it every season. And they always do it, no matter what. That's their purpose. But this is the trick. The tree is not for the fruit is not for the tree. It's for everybody else, for us to enjoy. Your gift is not for you to hold on to it. It's to put it for the use of others. That's why you gotta find it in. That's what I'm doing with my man. That's what I'm doing with mine.
And you're doing it very well, my friend. I love it. Oh, wow. That fruit and tree analogy is fantastic.
Yeah, man. You know?
Yeah. This isn't the exact example, but someone had asked, I had read Seinfeld. When he was filming his show, they asked him, oh, that must have been a blast filming Seinfeld, one of the most successful shows of all time. And he says, no, actually, it was a lot of work. It was really hard and long days, yada, yada. Yeah. But the audience loved it.
There you go. That's what it is.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a perspective shift.
It was so much work, but he has to give it to the audience. That's what it is, man. You're doing it, man. You are doing it, Sam. I told you, I'm being very conservative when I say one person, but that's what we're targeting anyway. If we want to realize that our work has produced fruit here, we want to see that just one person. Of course, it's going to impact like thousands of people in the long run. Thousands. I'm sure your work would impact thousands of people, if not millions. You're doing it for the people. And that's when you are all ready for your grave, fell and, you look back and you realize you have done your part to make the world a better place. You have created a place where people can be inspired, motivated, and take action, to see themselves differently, to change themselves for the better version of themselves. And you would be happy that you have done your part. And that's a beautiful thing. That's your gift, that's your purpose, man. That's your purpose. So somebody asked me once, on the internet, what is purpose? Somebody asked me, what is purpose? I said, let put it in a simple term, because sometimes it can be complicated and people might not even understand. Purpose is direct your gift toward others. Simple as that. Your gift, I mentioned everybody has a gift. And then when you direct it toward another person, others, that's a purpose. And that's it.
I love it. Thank you for all of that. That was, and again, people find it by having that awareness,
No,
by taking that pause to be able to like really look deep into yourself.
because you can get lost, especially in our society. We talked about it in length. You can easily get lost in this thing because you know that, especially living in a city like LA, where the rents are, the cost of life, it's so expensive. So you see yourself just want to like walk to pay the bills, and you just see yourself like that and didn't realize that, man, there's something about you. There's something great about you, something unique. You just got to take that moment and you have to be aware of it. You have to take the time and schedule it. Like today, I'm going to take a walk and think about myself, about my life, about my gift, about my contribution here on earth. You see, when a few years ago, oftentimes you don't have to be at the highest level in order to help somebody. I often say that no, you just need to turn back and see one person who's below you to be able to lift them up. You don't have to be like, have lots of money and possession to be like, oh, I can now contribute. No, man. A few years ago, I created a nonprofit called Africa You Can. And this organization, we used to go back home. And as I mentioned to you, I got excited about all that I've learned being here in America. I didn't deserve any better than somebody who left back home, right? But I think it's my duty to be able to share what I learned being in America. So that's why I created that organization to go back and start to teach the youth there simple things about life skills, entrepreneurial skills, creativity. To tell an African kid that wherever there are lots of problems, there are also solutions that are not far from it. Look at the society. Everything that has been invented was to fulfill a particular need, a particular solution to a problem of our society. So which means if there are many problems in a particular society, there are also potential of solution. Just by shifting somebody's mindset like that can go a long way to be like, we live in Africa. It seems as though there are lots of problems here. We don't have this, we don't have that. But think about the solution. You can be the one who can bring the solution to that thing. So my organization was doing just that, just opening the kids' mind, because I grew up like them my entire life. So by bringing this sort of type of education, knowledge, and information, man, it can go a long way. I say you don't have to finish school and look for work. You can create work. You can become a job. You can create things that you can hire people. Just by sharing that with them can set a new direction for them. So that's the idea of just contributing, turning back and help somebody who's in a lesser position than you are. And we all have the ability to do that. Think about the smile. Do you see that old lady, your neighbor, she's always kind of down. She doesn't have anybody who who pays her visits. She's just lonely. By just paying her visit and flash the costless smile to her, you could be doing that which we're talking about. Just talk with her that moment. You don't have to go to South America to save the hungry children or in Africa. No, just your neighbor. Just make that little impact right there. Man, you will feel so much better because that when we get out of our own problems and help another person, man, we are better off. It takes away the stink of our problem, really. Our problem doesn't go away, but usually the problem is not the problem itself. It's, how we internalize and how we perceive it, how we interpret our problem. And that what makes it even more problematic. So it's not the problem itself usually. Sometimes a minor thing like this, you can blow it off in your mind, right? You can just blow it off. It becomes something that you don't sleep about it. But yet it's just something like, man, forget about it. I'm not gonna. You just turn your back. Be like, what is it? I'm sweating. I'm all of this for nothing. For just this. So the way we look at, and I would say this, and this is from Wayne Dyer. I heard that from him. I don't know if it's the originator. I say, when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change.
This is gold. Eric, you got anything over there?
Yeah, I got a little story. I like that, by the way. So I've got a good friend who I never met his brother before because his brother's been estranged from their family. So I've known him for years now. And then I finally got to meet his brother. And I was kind of under the assumption that he'd be kind of like angry or just like really distant from everybody because he's estranged from that whole family, but he wasn't. He really surprised me. And I saw, this is kind of where I made an assumption. I'm like, I saw him as kind of meek, very timid, and I don't know, kind of fragile actually. So I was really surprised by that. And I was telling my friend about that. I'm like, yeah, I saw your brother as this. I wasn't expecting it. And the way he answered, it was like, yeah, my brother's very intentional and very well thought out and, kind of calculated with his words. And then I was thinking about that later on. And it's like, wow, what a beautiful way that he saw it compared to the way I saw it. Because the way I saw it with like words like fragile and meek or timid, that has a negative connotation to it. Yeah. So both our answers really could describe this person, but his had a beautiful, positive outlook on it. Mm. And then I realized after that, I'm like, well, I'm actually kind of jealous of this brother because of how, intentional he was with his words and stuff. And then once again, I'm like, jealous? Why do I have to be jealous? That's another negative connotation. It's like, why not admire? So it's just kind of, and that's kind of been something that's been sticking with me. But again, it's just my perspective on seeing something. It's like just choosing a certain lens to see it in really affects and just shows you kind of how I view things or how compared to how I could view things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was something that's new to me.
No. I mean, that is a powerful realization that you have, to be in that place that you start to be aware of even your own assumption. That's really a big step in that transformational, journey, because you see, we have the ability to interpret any situation, and sometimes we do it with our perception, with how we were built, our paradigms. And that's really what is very, it doesn't do justice to the thing itself, just as you notice. And that's why being aware as you were, it's absolutely incredible to shift the narrative of any situation. You approach it with a little bit of an objective. mind, not with the perception, because perception, it's always kind of skew. It's always you can be wrong with your perception most of the time anyway. And assumption, it's a big part of it, So and it's a good thing that you were able to do that. And I think if we approach any situation, because the thing is the thing, we only give meaning based on how we view things to that thing. And that's why I say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So just approach it from a different angle and see how it would have the same impact on you. And hopefully it would have a different impact. When you look at a situation or a problem from a different vantage point, it would always have a different meaning. So it's important to approach situation or people without much of assumption, which is hard to do. I read this book, The Four Agreement, which is a very good book, right? But these are if you live by these agreement, man, you'll be like an ideal human being. But it's not easy. It's not easy to do. It's not easy not to assume. It's not easy not to take things personally or even to be impeccable with your word, so it's not easy. But the thing is, it's possible. It's possible. And to make it possible is to start to cultivate awareness. Even awareness itself needs to be cultivated. It's not something that just happened spontaneously. Something happened, you'd be like, this is a chance. I'm going to practice it. You say that to yourself, you're not talking out loud. You could talk out loud, but it's okay. But you can be like, oh, this is an opportunity. Sam put this thing that I always say not to put here. I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to investigate to see really what happened, right? So you approach it that way. That's how you cultivate not to assume things. And it does happen as you do it. You build it, because when you start something, there's this thing in our brain called the neural pathways. When you start learning something like a piano, a new language, it starts to form in your brain. This is the same with everything. To build resilience, to create awareness, to build, start to create awareness. If you start to do it, you start to create new neural pathways in your brain. And the more you do it, it starts to thicken. And once you do it long enough, it becomes automatic. So you don't approach any situation with an assumption. So that's why, but it takes time. The monk, they take time to be in the space where they are not affected by a lot of things, right? We've learned so much about the 10,000 hours. So it takes really a lot of time to get to a place of automaticity of anything. Like when something happens, you don't snap. You just don't jump to conclusion. You just don't assume. But you got to keep doing it. You got to keep being aware and start to observe it objectively and start to investigate. And the more you do it, the better you become. That's just as simple as it is. The more you do it, the better you become for anything, for public speaking, for communication. The more you do it, the better you become. So that's what it is. Yeah.
The Four Agreements, I remember the not taking anything personal. That was the biggest one. They're all important, but that was one that really spoke to me.
No,
because it's so easy to take things personally.
No, of course.
When I was younger, especially, I definitely did.
Even as an adult, man, how many of us, when we see somebody who cut in front of us, on the traffic, it is as though it was personal, but yet it is not. Right? Because if you think about it, the person who just cut in front of you, and that's how it's good to always be aware when something like that happened quickly, right? Because somebody cuts in front of you, you just assume like, man, this guy, who the hell you get, and then, but what if the person is rushing to a job? If it doesn't get on time, that day he will get fired. So I think you can be a little bit compassionate toward that person at that moment. You can be like, no, go, man. If you know that, right? If you know it. What if it is a mother with kids yelling at the back of she's overwhelmed and she doesn't even control. You would want to really allow her. So when when that sort of situation, of course, it can happen to any, with every scenario. But in the case of a car cutting in front of you, you can just, say all these things. I mean, think of all these things, and then it will keep you just as you are, and you will feel even, you know, compassionate about the person who just cut in front of you, rather than chasing them down and showing the finger and you're so yeah. So it's we are human being, man. We act on impulse, but we can do better. We can do better. And the key, again, I'm going back to awareness. You know that you are doing it. You know that you just snap when you should have taken a step back a little bit and reconsider the situation. So when you stop getting aware of those situations, it loses its grip on you. You're no longer at the whim of anything stimuli that just takes place around you. Now you can choose, and you can pick and choose what you can snap at, or the things that you can reconsider and respond rather than react, because that's the difference. We react emotionally, we respond consciously.
There's this book I read called 3 Feet from Gold, and it was related to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. The guy said, don't ever make a decision in a valley, meaning
when you are
emotional and down. He's like,
down.
don't ever make important decisions in that, because you're not thinking.
You're not thinking rationally.
Clearly,
yeah. You're not thinking, and that is so true, because again, most of the time we do that. We do that all the time. I mean, I do it. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it. But when we know that, anytime that we make a decision when we are under emotional hijack, it's not always a right decision, because we act on impulse. But when we think about it long and hard, that's why I admire this president. I don't know if it's Abraham Lincoln. I think Abraham Lincoln. I think it's Abraham Lincoln, or I think Abraham Lincoln. He used to, be a little. At the beginning, he was very, aggressive type of person. So when he got into politics, I think the reason why he changed was because he was challenged to a duel.
I just read this. Yeah.
Yeah, he was challenged to a duel. And the duel in the past, I don't know if you know, but the duel, it's like, it's a fight that one person would die. So basically, he almost got into the, a duel of a fight. So, but it didn't happen. He reconsidered his life. Anytime that he's mad at somebody, he would just write a letter, right? At the moment, like you're mad at this person, you just write everything that you're going to say to that person. You put it in a nightstand. If the next day it still had the same feeling, he would send that letter. But oftentimes after a night, everything just, return to a normal reasoning human being. You think that it's not worth it to send it right away. It's not. It has loosened its grip on you, the emotional hijack. So that's why it's always good to take a step back. Take a step back in any situation that's emotional. Always take a step back, even if it's just for a few seconds. It helps. It helps. It happens in relationships as well. We do that all the time. We say the things that we don't want to say, and later we regret it, because we said it at the moment that we were very emotional. So, but key is to be aware that that can happen, and when a situation arises, so be like, this is the chance to practice what I'm, maybe what I'm preaching, or maybe what I'm learning, or whatever that is. So yeah, it's a work of progress. It's, you can never get to a place where, unless you become, I don't know, a monk or something, where, you're not affected. But We just want to do a little bit better every time. That's a goal. Just a little bit better every time we do it.
I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
Elvis, this has been quite the treat. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about before we head to the finish line?
No, I
Yeah.
mean, no, it's just like I'll come back to communication because it is a place where I'm very evangelical about it because I didn't have it.
Hmm.
You know, that's why I always, for me, is we have a lot of things in us. It could be our feelings, it could be our knowledge, it could be our expertise, but oftentimes we are hindered by our inability to convey that in ways that can impact somebody else's life. That's why I always think that every single person should learn the skill of communication because I think it's an essential skill. It's not the skill that you go and do it at work and you live it there. You go everywhere with your communication. Whether you go in China, in Africa, you take that with you and how you connect with people. That's how you can advance in life. So I've been my whole life, I was almost invisible. I missed out on opportunities. I missed out on relationships simply because I was not able to express my thought, my feelings, my ideas. So that's why I think communication, I'm just like crazy about it now. So basically, as I mentioned to you, I just finished the the 5-week boot camp on mastering the art of communication with my students, and I'm actually eventually maybe set up a podcast too, maybe coming this year, because I just want to share, just like you, create a space where people can be inspired, motivated, and take action to go to that next level of life for them and for their family. So, and I think communication for me is really that conduit that can take people there. And as I mentioned, you can be an expert, but you can save somebody by. Have you ever been at the at some conference, like scientist conference, or let's just say climate change conference? You see, climate is a real thing that can really destroy our existence. I don't know, maybe in the near future or in the long future. I don't know. But the way scientists share that reality to the population, nobody does anything with it because this is exactly what scientists do. They would be like, if you see, they show graph, they show logic, they show numbers, and just all of these things. It'd be like, if you see in 2015, it was rising at 2%. Now in 24, it's like 3%. No, when you assist a conference like that, what gonna move you to change? To do things in a way that can contribute to save the environment? Nothing, because these are not the things that make you change. But what if a scientist can be a good storyteller? Maybe tell a story of, let's just take an example of, like, let's just say Joanne. Joanne is a 9-year-old girl. She lives in the small village in Africa with her parents and the whole family, and they've been living there for generations. They only live by subsistent farming. Now that the temperature is rising, they are not able to feed themselves. They are obligated to move to a new territory where they did not know a single person. They have to start life anew. And it's challenging because Joanne's family is not the only family. It's the whole village that is moving because it's the village is burning, their fire, like whatever, forest fire and stuff like that. What if a scientist can tell that sort of story and then only use number to, you know, emphasize the point of real people are suffering as a result of it? You would go home and you would change. You would change for Joanne. You would change for the many families that are obligated to move to different territory. And who knows, it would cause some kind of chaos because people are even coming here in the US. They're finding place to live, finding place to survive. So it causes, immigration issue everywhere. So you see all of these things can cause you, Sam, to change your ways. To be like, if I were doing this and that contribute to the climate change, I'm going to stop doing because it touches you emotionally. That's what communication is, man.
That is so true. Like, I'm just thinking, do you do this? Do you go into corporations and like help with their messaging and stuff like that? Because I think you'd be phenomenal.
No,
at that.
actually, I'm setting up to do that. Coming this January, I'm working to really establish myself to take it to corporate level,
like a consultant
and things like that. So
yeah, because you're exactly right. When they put those big numbers on the screen and everything, people are like,
yeah,
drowning out. And all due respect to scientists, that's what they do.
That's
they
what
look
they
at
do.
numbers.
And that's wonderful. But they're dealing with people
right
who are not scientists.
That's why they need people like you.
That's why they need people like me.
Well, and their sales department would also really benefit from that as well. You know, because that's what sales is too. It's like if you could communicate. But isn't that funny? Like in college, it's kind of like the conceptions. Like if someone's a communication major, you kind of like roll your eyes, like, oh, that's an easy one. But not really. Like if you actually went in there full hearted, like, yo, I want to be the best communicator ever. And you did that degree and you really went after and went above and beyond. Like it'd actually be a really worthy degree. I'm not knocking anybody that's doing it otherwise, but yeah, it's really interesting how.
Even in sales team, I mean, because sales is that it's you connect with another human being through the means of communication, man. Because the simple definition of communication is to make people see what you want them to see or to do what you want them to do, and you do that in a way that is clear, concise, and compelling. That's what communication is. I'm not communicating with you because I want you to see my point. I want you to see something that I'm trying to share with you. Or I want you to do something, take action. But I want to make it so it is clear, concise, and compelling. So you can do it, you can see it. That's what it is, man.
I love it. Well, Elvis, this has been fantastic. You're going to get the last word, but before we do that, where can people find you or reach out to you, connect with you, get your books? Where are all the places people can
go? Just like everyone, the place to find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and you can say Elvis. I think everywhere is Elvis Prince Tognia. Tognia is Tognia. Elvis Prince, or Elvis, I'm not related to Elvis Presley. Prince, I'm not related to Prince, but I just happen to have those amazing names. But yeah, you can find me on those social media. And then, of course, my books are at Amazon. Amazon, A Lot of Your Life, Rise to Your Best Life. And by the way, I'm writing my third book, which is going to be awesome. So basically, by this January, I think it'll be published.
Do we have a title? Can we leak it? Or
the title is coming up. It's The Power of the One Thing. The Power of the One Thing. Of course, going back to what we talk about, the gift that we have. Everybody has that one thing. How do you harness the power of that one thing? So that's going to be my third book coming up.
Oh, man, I'm excited. Eric, you got any final thoughts?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Elvis, this was truly a treat. I'm so glad I met you. We could have talked for 5 more hours. That's why we save it for part 2.
It's already like 1 hour. I thought it was only 30 minutes, man. It was so interesting. I didn't miss it.
Oh man, man. So, do you got more juice? We can
you can go all day long, man.
Yeah. No, it's a joy to talk to you, and I think it's truly inspiring to see someone such as yourself living their purpose, doing it well, and you really do. You have an energy about you that it's contagious, man. Like
thank you, brother.
And you're a reminder. And reading your book and talking to you now, and just like, yeah, you have to put this stuff into practice. You have to do that, but it's possible. And I love the Wayne Dyer quote there. Like I'm going to butcher it. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
There you go. Thank you so much, Sam. And This is wonderful, man. I got to tell you, you may not realize it deeply inside of you, but when you're going to start to see some people who are going to see you someplace and tell you, Sam, your podcast has really helped me through this moment. That's when you're going to realize, yeah, that's it. You've done it and you're doing it. Thank you so much for having me, man.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming on. And I've just had a vision of the podcast tree dropping episodes of fruit.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a big piece of fruit.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of people eating off this one. And I'm glad you named your Instagram and all that, because I'll be tagging you in everything.
Yeah. Elvis Prince, on Facebook, it's only Elvis Tognia, but, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Elvis Prince Tognia. Facebook's just Elvis Tognia, and YouTube, Elvis Tognia. But Elvis Tognia is somewhere.
Okay. And I just actually made the correlation of, I knew the Elvis name, but I knew Prince the artist as well. I just now that
man, I got a name for Hollywood, man.
You definitely got it.
I got a name for Hollywood.
And a smile too.
Oh,
there we go.
Let's put this guy in some films, man.
I'm going to tell you, before there's many people who said something like, there's this actor called Omar Sy. Omar Sy is a black actor from France. So when he had a film Untouchable, I don't know if it's Untouchable, many people saw me a bit like, man, you like that guy when they saw the movie, that I remember, because he has the same kind of way, smiling and, talking. And I started here in films too.
So, I read that in the book. You had a vision because you were in DC, right?
Yeah, I was in DC. I moved here. I was in commercial. I was doing a lot of stuff.
Really?
I was doing television, even in Spanish, because I speak Spanish very well too. I did some Spanish television, Telemundo. Yeah, I did some shows in Telemundo.
So wait. We got a couple minutes here. So you came here and you only knew your native language, correct?
Yes.
And you learned not only English, but Spanish too?
Yes. I speak Spanish.
How long did that take you?
I just practice. I just get to it, man. When I see somebody who's Spanish, I just get to it. Como está? I read too. I read a lot now. I can write Spanish just as I speak it.
Do you speak other languages, or is it?
Yeah, I speak. Of course, I speak French. I speak Spanish. I speak English now. I speak a little bit of Italian, and I speak 2 African dialects.
Wow.
Yeah. So just.
Oh, that's just extremely impressive. But no, it makes sense though. The more I'm talking, like, you really are a master communicator.
Well, try to. I'm on a journey. I really, as long as I live, I really want to make impact with the voice, help people, use their own voice.
And I was going to say this, I don't know if it's a great analogy or metaphor, but I view you as like this, almost like a leader of the community that's trying to pass down this ancient knowledge.
Yes.
Before it becomes diminished.
Yes. I mean,
I'm serious.
No. That's
because with the phones and everything, it's what you're doing is that the more we've talked, I realize how important this really is.
That's where I am, man. And it's burning inside of me that people need to get back to really communicate with each other in ways that can really impact each other. That's who we are. I mean, with this technology, it's becoming even more difficult now to even communicate anymore. I don't even know what you're feeling, Sam. If you text me, I have no idea. If you are my friend, you could be going through terrible stuff and you'll be lying through text. I would just be seeing just the text, but I would not see the tone under the text. But if I talk to you and your voice is low, or maybe it's high, maybe it's a little bit quick, maybe it's a little bit slower, I would detect something about it. I'll be, Sam, what is it going on? That's how maybe I can intervene in situation that, could be dire for you, So communication is everything, man. I don't know. I'm biased, but I think I used to be disqualified, because that's the thing. We are more qualified today to help the person we used to be. Like, I was not a communicator. That's why I think knowing how to communicate a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm a master communicator, but I know little techniques, right? That's what I'm evangelical about this, man.
I love that word, evangelical, about it.
Yeah. And everybody has to be evangelical about their cause. Anything that you believe in, you got to be evangelical about it. Whether it is leadership, whether it is, sharing idea, you've got to be evangelical about it. You got to because that's your contribution. You, as I say, you want to be in that old age and look back, be like, yeah, I gave it all here, right? I give it all here. I learned this thing about the richest place on earth, which is the cemetery. Can you believe that? The cemetery is the richest place on earth because people go there with their music still in themselves, with their talent, with their books, their design, their knowledge. What about you live it here? Live it, man. Why are you going with everything in you, Sam? Live it here.
Die empty.
Die empty. That's it. That's it. Die empty, man.
Oh man, I'm waiting for your world tour because now that you speak all these, you're ready to go. You're
I'm ready to
rock.
go, man. I'm telling you, it's set
The
up,
Elvis tour, the
Elvis tour, the revival of the,
And when you leave, like Elvis has left the building.
There you go. That's if I can find some, people who can boost me a little bit. Sometimes you can be in a journey by yourself. It may be a little hard, but if you find a team, some people who can, support a little bit, I would love to do things like that, just like a tour, man, the world tour, like to, people doing like a world to evangelize, in the religious way. I'll be doing in just lifting people up yeah, man.
Yeah, I love it, man. You got me pumped. So, Elvis, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Sam.
You gave us so much to talk about. Yeah. Real quick, did you want to plug your nonprofit again? I thought that was really cool that you do that.
Yeah, my nonprofit is Africa You Can. Africa You Can. It's Africa You Can. Africa and the U in the middle, like the U, letter U, can.org. And of course, so my social media, if you want to learn more about Africa You Can or anything else that I'm doing, my social media and Elvis Tognia, Tognia.
Perfect. And Elvis, I always give the guests the last word. You've already given us so much. It can be as deep or as shallow as you want, shorter, as long as you want. How would you like to end this podcast? What would you like to leave us with?
What I want to leave as a final word or final on this podcast is just like, I already said it, Sam. I said that every single one of us has something unique. And we can only have a better world for those who will come after us if we do our part. If we do our part. And our part is not something that is not in the spectrum of our potential. It's our gift because it comes easier to us. So I encourage anybody to use their gift to impact the world. It could be you are the greatest smile in the world. You just smile at people. You don't know what it's doing to somebody who's having a bad day. Compliment people. You don't know what they're going through. Just give them something positive. Just be evangelical about being positive. Even if at times you just fake it, right? Because you don't know how it's going to impact your surrounding, and it might come back to you. And it always comes back to you. So live your full potential. Live it all here, because the world needs those who come alive with their potential, with their gift. That's all I have, Sam. That's it.
That's incredible. Elvis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. This was a treat.
We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, man.
Hi, everyone. Sam Dever, the Sam Dever Podcast here, and I just want to thank you for checking out this episode. To watch and listen to future episodes, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Thank you so much. See you soon.